What do you need, love? Package delivery?
I'm Hawke. I got a letter from some mage friends.
I see. Check the back of the board for our special rates.
I won't stand by while mages suffer.
Bless you, love. The board has all the details. Should you take care of something, just drop by.
Anders is our final companion. Sure, there's Bethany and Carver, but since you lose one during the tutorial and the other a third of the way into the game, there's not much to say. The word to sum up Anders is simple: fanatic. You might think it would be freedom, like Isabella, as it is even his cry in battle. But Anders isn't committed to freedom in general like she is. He's interested in a very specific kind of freedom. Indeed, if freedom itself were the cause for him, then Anders would endorse the right of mages to choose blood magic, if, like Merrill, they only intended to use their own blood. But Anders has no love for blood mages, because what he really wants is freedom from Templar control of the Circle, and freedom to come and go from the Circle. And that's about it. Anything else, he doesn't really seem to care about the injustice of it or not, the right to choose or not. Now, those wants of his are certainly not unreasonable, and as you see, Hawke is on board with that. But that's the problem between someone who wants to support a cause and a fanatic in the name of the cause. As someone once said, a fanatic is someone who won't change their mind and won't change the subject. Anders' fanaticism colors his every encounter. Aveline's deliberate turning of a blind eye to Anders, an abomination no less, isn't good enough for him. He has to complain that she doesn't let every mage her guards capture go free. When they visit the alienage, Anders comments that because of their oppression, the elves should, quote, be on our side. It doesn't occur to him to say, we should work with the elves. It's, the elves should be working with us. Anders is a my cause first, even discussing nuance is heresy kind of fanatic. He feels no extreme is taking it too far, but will condemn even the most trifling act of those he disagrees with as if they were feeding pregnant women to hungry sharks. Anders is the kind of fanatic that doesn't care about winning hearts and minds, just about winning, and so consequently always loses. If you think of the mage issue as being like drug prohibition, Tim the Enchanter is the one that says to people, we should decriminalize marijuana as a first step in showing how society isn't going to collapse, but then Anders cuts him off because Tim's not advocating heroin-filled vending machines be placed in schools tomorrow. Anders is insufferable because, even if you're on his side, you're still not on his side enough for him, not unless you're almost as insane as he is. There's discussion as to how much of the character even is supposed to be Anders, because of the complexity surrounding the move from Awakening to DA2. The one who wrote him in Awakening, David Gator, said on his Tumblr, quote, I discussed the plans for him in DA2 with Jennifer Hepler, though we weren't sure Anders would be the Awakening character coming over to DA2. For a while it was going to be Valana. Picture Valana Justice, if you will. And we fully agreed on where he was going. So what degree this was written for Valana and had Anders squeezed in, we don't know. The fanaticism is more understandable with her personality, and it's easy to see why they wouldn't want both mages to be elves. But we don't know. Valana could have been written in there and they just crossed her name off and wrote Anders for everything. Or it could be that nothing had actually been written down for Valana and Anders was written entirely this way from the beginning. Gator didn't write Valana on Awakening, though. Cheryl Chi did, so if there had been discussion on it at some point, it would have been with someone else. Now, Gator did say of Anders' actions in DA2 that it led to frustration or rage from the players for this behavior. He said, he's in the game to make you react somehow, and he succeeded admirably in that respect. speaking positively about the experience. Ironically, Gator himself ended up leaving Tumblr because of his frustration with people who believe, quote, everyone must spend 100% of their mental energies devoted to social activism. In other words, fanatics. But hey, at least they got you to react, and they succeeded admirably in that respect. Anders talks with Hawke about his concern over a certain Templar, Sir Ulrich, the one who made his friend Tranquil back in Act 1. That was just one case. It seems that Ulrich is working on the Tranquil solution, turning every mage in Kirkwall tranquil over the next 3 years, regardless of the threat they might pose. Well, Anders wants to do something about it, and Hawke agrees to help, because again, this kind of thing we can all agree upon. Turning every mage into a zombie is wrong. So we head into those monster-filled tunnels to try and sort this out.
So, you admit your attempted escape? You know what happens to mage girls who don't toe the line around here, don't you?
Please, no! Don't make me tranquil. I'll do anything.
That's right. Once you're tranquil, you'll do anything I ask.
I know you were trying for a clever bit of wordplay, but could you have not said it in a way that withered the souls of everyone that heard it?
It's the Divine. Come all the way from Orlais to tell you personally what a jackass you are.
Well, Anders, and especially Justice, are not going to stand for this, so a fight breaks out. Although, really, a fight was pretty much inevitable. After the fight's over, Justice isn't satisfied and wants to kill more Templars. They're like Pringles to him.
It's over, Anders. They're all dead.
Every one of them will feel Justice's burn.
Get away from me, demon!
I am no demon. Are you one of them, that you would call me such?
This is the problem with fanatics. They are so committed to destroying their enemies that even their friends look like enemies.
Please, Messer.
Baker, no. I almost... If you weren't here, I need to get out of here.
Yeah, I was thinking of getting out of here too. What with all these guys we've killed and all. I think we'll leave the bodies though. Nobody's going to find them for a while. And when they do, it'll be somebody to animate them in order to fight somebody. All those skeletons have to come from somewhere, you know. They don't just grow in the ground. And that's how I like to think of it, really. I'm not a mass murderer. I'm just an active supporter of sustainability for necromancers.
Trash. Trash. Keep. Trash.
Sounds like me on my last job, finding things that fell off a cart. Anyway, Linda Blair, I thought I'd let you know that I took care of the mage kit. She's going to visit her parents and then head off so that nothing bad happens to her. Oh, and I found these papers on the dead guy. The main dead guy. I know there were a lot of dead guys to sort through, even by our standards.
Looks like the Tranquil solution began and ended with him.
Let me see that. The Divine rejected the idea. Meredith rejected the idea. This was not what I expected. Perhaps I should try talking to the Grand Cleric. Maybe she's more reasonable than I thought.
That's a good idea. Unfortunately, my fear is you're not as reasonable as I think.
You know, I've been meaning to thank you. You don't need to stick your neck out for the mages here. But you have. One day, we'll make a world where your sister can be free again.
Mages cannot be treated as guilty just by association.
I can't tell you how reassuring that is. Sometimes, you're the only reason I don't think I'm crazy.
I knew I was doing something wrong.
You make me think I can really do this. Lead a revolution.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You, Anders, aren't leading anything. If there is a revolution, and we're going to try to avoid anything that radical, because in revolutions, a lot of people die on both sides, okay? Especially the innocents. So we're going to try to make this a peaceful transformation. But if there is a revolution, you're not leading it, all right? You are about as well equipped to lead a revolt as a fish is to play the piano, all right? I would trust Sandral with leading a revolution before I trusted you. You are the last person in line, and I'm remembering a dog as a member of the team. Of course, this is going to fly right over your head, I know, because you're the same guy who, after I showed kindness and understanding for the plight of mages, immediately presumed that I wanted you to get into my pants. Anders, you're the master of both misinterpreting what you're being told and how to deal with other human beings. You can never lead a revolution. Oh, you can start one, I'll grant that. But any idiot can start an avalanche. It takes a colossal idiot to presume he can lead an avalanche.
Seriously, though, I couldn't do this without your support.
How can you possibly know any spells, you big blonde moron?
You think I don't know the City Guard is just another arm of the Templars?
That is completely unfair.
If they show up here, I'll know who to blame. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to see that.
It's all right. I already knew what a massive prick you are. Was there something specific, or was this just another street performance of angry zealot makes an ass of himself?
The Mage Underground is all but destroyed, and those left have turned to blood magic as their only option, which Meredith knows will prevent any chance of the public taking their side.
Good to know. I think we're on the same page then. We need to avoid anything that is going to provoke any kind of confrontation between the Mages and Templars right now. Otherwise, the public is going to back the wrong team, and we're going to wind up with the Mages getting massacred. Good, I'm glad we've got that straightened out. Dodged a bullet there. Now, was there anything else?
I've gathered most of what I need, but there are some outlandish ingredients I was hoping you'd help me collect. A powder the Tevinters call Selapetre, and a small amount of Drakestone.
The cottage cheese? Oh, you said Drakestone, okay. Anders says that he realizes letting justice into his body was a mistake, and so he's going to follow a Tevinter recipe to try to remove the spirit from him without harming either one of them. And naturally, we've got to go collect some crap. No, really, we've got to go collect some crap.
We can enter the sewers from here to look for the Selapetre. Are you ready?
To enter the sewers? When in the hell would the answer to that question ever be yes?
Let's see if we can find a few more deposits.
More? Exactly how much shit does this recipe of yours need? Is it proportional to the amount of shit you're full of? Because then I know we're going to be down here all day. After we collect all that for him, then we have to head to the mine and face down some giant spiders. Yeah, not any old giant spider. It requires a giant spider. Just tell me that recipe of yours is definitely going to work. Work or kill you. I will settle for either option at this point.
There is one more thing I would ask of you, Hawke. And I can't tell you why. I must get inside the Chantry without being seen. Will you talk to the Grand Cleric for me? Distract her long enough for me to do what must be done.
No, I've been in crime long enough to know never to be accomplice to something if you don't know the full extent of what it is.
If you support freedom for mages, help me. That's all I can say.
Wait, what does the one have to do with the other? I thought we were curing you. Of being an abomination, I mean. Obviously there's no cure for being a jackass.
You said you believe in me. Again and again you have shown your support for mages. Then trust me now. I am doing only what is necessary.
Wait a minute. How can you expect me to trust you if you refuse to trust me? Also, there's a difference between trusting that you want to do the right thing in the end and trusting that you're not going to make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, and it sounds like you might be making one. So just tell me. I'm not trusting that you're infallible, all right? Don't pretend that you're some kind of deity and won't fuck this up. Because let me tell you, Anders, you fucked some things up in your life.
But maybe your support of mages ends at talk. It's easier to support freedom if no one must die to achieve it. You cannot pretend friendship, then stop now.
Like I said, fanatic. You're either in 100% with them or you're the enemy. There's never any possibility of, let's be reasonable about this. No room for reason, only room for doctrinal purity. So I tell him he can go fuck himself.
I have always been on my own. For a time I just forgot.
Yeah, well, that's because the only voice you'll listen to is the one that comes out of your own mouth. God, I hate you so much. I'd punch you in your self-satisfied face. There wasn't a good chance I'd get bits of spirit all over my outfit. I'm just done with him. He can do what he normally does, probably hitting on widows at funerals.
I will have the tower searched, top to bottom.
You cannot do that. You have no right.
I have every right. You are harboring blood mages, and I intend to root them out before they infect this city.
This leads us into the climax of the work, where, as we discover, both of these two are right and wrong. The mages think the Templars are just looking for an excuse to murder them all, and they are, because they decide to at the first opportunity, even though the mages haven't done anything. And the Templars, they think the circle is full of blood mages, which it is, because when the Templar try that, the circle fights back and most of them use blood magic. So, both sides are assholes, as is typical for this game. Orsino has learned some really warped stuff, including from the guy who killed Mom. And as for Meredith, she's made a sword out of the red lyrium Bartrand sold, and it's driven her to paranoid ravings. As if this wasn't bad enough, then there's... So, this is what you wanted me to trust you over. The dumbest fucking thing in the history of dumbest fucking things. You think what's going to convince people of the need for reform is blowing up a church. You thought, people are afraid of mages, so how about if I prove they should be? That's right, isn't it? That is what you thought, yes? Because you were so confident of your asinine plan that you refused to allow any input in from anyone else, so you must have considered all of the options and said, yes, by the Maker, I will take the cause I have spent years fighting for and piss it away in the stupidest act I possibly can. And you had the nerve to tell me that aiding you was for my protection? When you knew full well being your accomplice would get me executed right alongside you. I mean, do you really think that me not knowing what I was helping you with was going to fly? I only ask because you are such an imbecile, it's entirely possible for you to think Templars are cruel despots and Templars are perfectly just at the same time. It's easy to have cognitive dissonance when you're carrying around a second mind. By all rights, I should kill you as a preemptive act of self-defense simply because you've tried to trick me into getting myself executed, and God knows what else you might try before the day's over. In fact, frankly, the only reason that I'm not going to do that is because I'm half tempted to see if they're going to make you a tranquil. Now, I normally abhor that, but then, you know what else I abhor? Blowing up churches.
I could have stopped you.
No. This had to happen.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me this piece of shit is on rails. I'd forgotten for a moment there. So Meredith has decided to kill every single mage in the circle, despite the fact that the mage who did this is the one who's not in the circle. That's a little thing called logic.
It doesn't matter. Even if I wished to, I could not stay my hand. The people will demand blood.
Hawke must choose now, but this is at most a token choice. You can side with the Templars and execute all the mages, or you can side with the mages and fight the Templars. Either way, the outcome is the same. Orsino unleashes the nasty spell, and you have to fight him even if you're on his side. And Meredith will try to kill you even if you are on her side, using the power of the red lyrium to animate the statues in the gallows to fight. Well, Varric is willing to join with me, as is Merrill for protecting the mages. Aveline's unsure, but decides after all we've been through that she's got my back. Fenris, to the surprise of no one, sides with the Templars. But thankfully, he eventually sees the justice in Hawke's fight and switches sides. Bethany, of course, is in favor of not being executed. So, that just leaves our two extremists, then.
And if I pay for that with my life, then I pay. Perhaps then justice would at least be free.
Opinions?
If I'd been in that chantry today, would you be waffling? You know what must be done.
Why does it have to be me when there's an entire city full of Templars that would want to do the job? I have a rule, I only kill in self-defense, and I've already killed enough people in self-defense. I've wiped out an entire clan in self-defense. I'm not looking for a reason to kill someone just because they need a killing.
Just go.
No! You cannot let this abomination walk free. He dies, or I am returning to Starkhaven. And I will bring such an army with me on my return that there'll be nothing left of Kirkwall for these Maleficarum to rule.
Go right ahead. That's what Kirkwall is here for. Kirkwall is like Tokyo in Godzilla movies. It's made to be destroyed.
I will return to Starkhaven, but I swear to you, I will come back and find your precious Anders. I will teach him what true justice is.
Sure thing. Thanks for making me not regret helping you.
Thank you for my life. I'll try not to make such a mess of it this time.
If you want to thank me, piss off and never come back. I don't want to see your living proof that Darwin was wrong face ever again.
We can still prevent this, before you both tear Kirkwall apart.
You heard her. She's wanted this all along.
You realize this is a cause you cannot hope to win.
I suppose dying with you at my side is too much to ask?
I have changed my mind, human. I will stand with my friend.
Hear that, Anders? Even Fenris is willing to see nuance. Even Fenris! And he's a walking cartoon embodiment of an angry teen's angst. Before the final assault by the Templars, I get the chance to talk about things with my friends one last time. It's a chance to lift our spirits before the likely hopeless battle, bond in the face of death, and hope perhaps we'll cheat it this day. And then there's...
You decided to join the mages after all?
Yeah, because unlike you, I actually care whether mages live or die.
Will it sully your victory to have me here?
What fucking part of fucking telling you to fucking fuck off did you fucking not fucking understand, fuckface? So, with Anders gone, the on-rails climax happens, we're let go, and the matter turns back then to the narrative that's been going on this whole time.
So how is hearing all this going to help? You've already lost all the circles. In fact, haven't the Templars rebelled as well? I thought you decided to abandon the Chantry to hunt the mages.
Not all of us desire war, Varric. Please, if you know where the champion is, you must tell me. She is a hero. A woman that the mages would listen to.
Why, no one has listened to me so far. Anders did succeed in breaking the circles, but this is now war. And funny thing about war, but no side is really guaranteed a victory. This fails, and mages are going to be longing for the days when all they had to fear was Templar oversight in the circle. Anders decided to put the lives of every living and future mage in jeopardy, rather than working to forge a path towards peaceful transition. Because given Hawke's utter lack of anything to do in this town, and a sister trapped in the circle under a despotic Templar, I would like to think that she has been spending this time and her money working to build a coalition to apply pressure to the Chantry towards slow reform. Mages come from every level of society, after all. Nobles who see their heirs locked away and told to feel shame about it, and elves who would likely be disproportionately targeted to ensure that they aren't a danger. Society may fear mages, but a lot of society is touched by mages. Oh yeah, revolutions are flashy, violent uprisings are romantic. But all I saw was innocent mages dying to pay for the crimes of someone who insists he only had their best interests at heart. So in this insanity, Cassandra wants help from Hawke, who is long gone, as is the hero of Ferelden, because, as you saw, he and Morgan went off to make sweet, sweet love. And Leliane's involved, setting up the sequel. So the end credits come, and even the end credits suck. It's over 17 minutes long, high even for a major motion picture. And it doesn't need to be. Look at how slow they're moving. And they're all confined to the one small column. It doesn't widen out to list dozens of names, nor does it start showing beautiful concept art or other images in the right-hand portion of the screen. Perhaps it's a tribute to the massive void in Hawke's motivation. That certainly was a major part of the game experience, after all. What's funny is that Dragon Age 2's main problem is that it is Dragon Age 2. Now, I don't mean, as others have suggested, that just relabeling it as not a sequel was what was needed. The flaws are still the flaws, after all. Instead, I mean that the demands of the product were to fit a game which is a square peg into a round hole. DA2 doesn't want to be like Dragon Age Origins. It wants to be its own thing, and a significant part of the negative experience comes from trying to force the game to be something that it isn't. It wants to be a book. It wants to be chapters. But to conform to the expectations and technological limitations of the time, it is stamped on a disc and shipped to stores in a whole package. A package that's riddled with bugs, suffering from the constraints of a rushed development and giving us a sandbox style that they forgot to add the sand to. Dragon Age 2 would have benefited substantially from being a series of chapters released over time. As Mark of the Assassin showed, it wasn't without its flaws, to be sure, but it gave a big experience. Releasing the game in chunks like this, and not like Knights of the Fallen Empire, which was episodic but even more on rails than DA2, it would have allowed the developers to make the game narrow but deep, to allow players freedom while simultaneously ensuring the plotline itself can't go flying off the rails. In other words, something to maintain the illusion that I've spoken about, that the player is not a helpless pawn of the game, but is making decisions. DA2's style easily breaks the illusion, but it didn't have to. Telltale Games' version of The Walking Dead went on to much acclaim just 1 year after DA2 came out. And it came from both critics and audiences, and it employed this idea. And while an RPG and an adventure game are arguably apples and oranges, it showed the technique was viable. Telltale's game sold 8.5 million episodes over the course of its release life, while DA2's figures were abysmal. Dragon Age Origins sold 2.06 million copies just in its first 10 weeks, while even the most optimistic sales figures released say that DA2 has never reached that number. Its sales dropped like a stone thanks to a negative reception among fans, and this was after release. As you can see, the initial sales figures were huge because of the popularity of Dragon Age Origins. Trying to force a game that should have been chapters into being a disc-stamped complete story is likely the main reason. While the story itself was frequently absurd in its lack of nuance, these things weren't horrible. The story has potential, it's just that, as presented, it's not more than the sum of its parts, and its parts just aren't sufficiently developed. The game could have benefited from only needing to have Episode 1 100% ready for release, polished like a diamond to excite people, while the bugs and things were still being worked out of the remaining chapters. The player picks up with the family escaping a burning loathering, watching her father struck down, and Hawke herself forced to keep the others going to survive. Forks in the road ahead, no way to know if you're choosing a path to lead you to freedom or overwhelming darkspawn. But Hawke must decide because in their current emotional state, no one else is prepared to. After escaping the Darkspawn, she's forced to then trek through a land in the midst of civil war, reaching a ship, only to discover the plot to sell them into slavery, and forcing Hawke to lead a revolt on the high seas, establishing, as she successfully brings the refugees to Kirkwall, that where she leads, others can't help but follow. Over the next year, 4 or 5 more episodes come out, culminating in the Deep Roads. Hawke finds her great fortune, finally receiving the fruits of her hard work. And then, as the complete story gets its Game of the Year release, it's announced the release of the sequel, Dragon Age: Shadow of the Arashock. That'll be coming out soon, and that will offer another 5 to 6 chapters with that. And after that will be the exciting conclusion in Dragon Age: Blood and Steel, 5 or 6 more chapters, drawing to a close what fans have dubbed the Hawke Trilogy. The story is mediocre, but it doesn't need to be. There is unfulfilled potential here that could have made the Hawke story an epic instead of the disappointing middle chapter the franchise struggles to try to justify. The rushed release, coupled with an ill-fitting format for its premise, is the problem with this game. And I hope that between this, KOTOR 2, and Mass Effect Andromeda, that perhaps the lesson is being learned that artificial deadlines are not just bad for a game's ultimate reputation, they're ultimately not good business. There was another DLC planned, Exalted Marches, but that was abandoned, leading to a variety of rumors. Some that it was the DA2 version of Awakening, a massive expansion for the game in both gameplay and story. When it was cancelled, it was attributed to the game's poor sales and reception. Neither of these two main ones are true, at least according to BioWare insiders. Exalted Marches would have brought back in elements of DA2's Red Lyrium, the Qunari, and Starkhaven, among other things, but not the massive expansion that Awakening was. Nor was it being cancelled because of DA2's reputation. The third game, Dragon Age Inquisition, made use of an entirely new engine, and it was decided that the entire team needed to be devoted to the process of adapting it for their purposes, so everybody had to be pulled off Exalted Marches in order to make that happen. Of course, it could be argued that if the game was more of a financial success, that decision might have gone the other way. Dragon Age 2 certainly left people uncertain of what exactly was the future for the series. Word came from EA that they'd heard feedback and the third game would go in a different direction. And it certainly would. Does DA2 deserve to be on the ash bin of history? I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that the game should serve as an object lesson. Here's how you could do this kind of thing wrong. And in a way, that's actually a relief. Had it succeeded in spite of that, there's absolutely no doubt that the shoddy production of this game would have been the new norm for at least the next several years. Instead, it forced them to acknowledge that making a great game takes time and resources, not truncated productions and ill-fitting business models. So from one measure, it is a success. It was good enough to be worth a playthrough, but bad enough to convince management to stop cutting corners. And there's something kind of noble about sacrificing oneself in order to ensure that the future is better and not worse. DA2 saved us from gaming mediocrity by sacrificing its own reputation. But by now you might be thinking I kind of petered out at the finish line. Well, this has been an exhausting experience, so let me sum up the entirety of Dragon Age 2 for you in about 5 minutes.
Meredith expects blood magic, then I will give it to her.
Sincerity does not justify this.
I think I'm sick of mages and Templars.
How do you know I'm the champion?
Slayer of Canary, Deep Roads Explorer, and a beauty to make the gods jealous.